Right. What's your next step? That's the title. What's your next step?
Okay,
There we
sounds
are.
good.
Yep. Cool. Well, welcome everyone. As I was fumbling around trying to figure out what.
Okay, we're on the live.
Oh, I thought we were already live.
Yeah, we're already live.
Okay. Well, welcome everyone. Tonight I think I have a question that I would like to spend a lot of time discussing, not because I think it's a very deep concept, because I feel like we all will have different kind of perspective on um, what will be happening. So, the first question I want to ask everyone is what do you think things will look like once we're all given the okay to go outside? That work from home is no longer a thing, quarantine's done, stay at home advisory is over. What do you think the community overall, like, how do you think things will look? What will be the same? What will be different? Like, what's your perspective on things like that once we're done with this all?
Do you mean immediately?
However you want to take it, immediately, a week, 2 months.
I think there's
Uh,
probably still going to be quite a few people walking around much more cautiously for a fair amount of time. I wouldn't be surprised if it was even once, say, here in PA, it's being said that people who are going around into public places without wearing masks may be subject to getting everything from getting a citation from the police all the way up to losing your license if you get caught multiple times. So I think that even once that's relaxed, there's probably still going to be a lot of people walking around still with masks on and taking more precautions.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's just going to be something that may be here to stay. I mean, maybe for a year, maybe indefinitely. Don't know.
I think probably people will have a big party just to celebrate. Everyone can go outside. At least my family in China, when they are released to be outside and they have a really big party, and then they go outside. And I think lots of people will tend to travel, like a road trip or something, because we all locked down inside for such a long time. So it's a time to go outside and maybe some places far or near. And then I think the difference we will be much more grateful for we are still healthy and survived from this virus.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a very slow ramping up. Um, yeah, I think it'll be a while before everything is normal.
Yeah.
There may be a couple of businesses that were with us before that no longer are. So that's like that really does. Who knows? I think there are gonna be a lot of things that because of the virus this happened, and then we're gonna have to like cope with some loss or something. Um, yeah.
Yeah. I'm you use the word return to normal, and I'm really curious personally on if normal is even on the table, so to speak. Like, I don't I don't know. I don't have a strong opinion one way or another, as far as what normal will look like, or if a new normal will be established. The coronavirus COVID-19 has definitely disrupted day to day life. It's disrupted everything on a global scale. Something that has not happened, at least within my lifetime, before. And I'm curious personally on what changes will happen, if any, that will stick, that will just be the new norm, that like 10 years from now, people will kind of look at a particular action and think, oh, the reason we do this is because of, COVID-19. Um, you know, that's just the new norm. This is why we do things this way. In much the same way as like why certain things are the way they are after 9/11, that it just had such a huge impact. that now we just kind of look at stuff and say, oh, well, the reason this happens is because we live in a post 9/11 world. And I'm curious what normal looks like in a post COVID-19 world. What will change, what will stick, what will be revealed, what will be shown. But that's kind of my own thought. Like, I don't know. I personally think, I think Sarah's right on some aspect that, man, I was even thinking about it today. Just like once this is all said and done and restaurants and all that open up, I am sure all my friends, everyone's just gonna be like, hey, you know what? Let's go to a bar. Let's have a happy hour. I haven't seen you guys in forever. Let's grab a drink. Let's catch up. Let's do this, whatever. I think that's very likely the case personally. Like a lot of socializing will happen once this all kind of comes to an end. Curious on the policies of everything afterwards, though. Yinshin, I don't know if you're there, but did you have any input or thoughts on it?
Yeah, I feel like short term, people may start socializing, but some people may feel comfortable not going out. So like before, people didn't realize they can work at home, and now they realize it's fine, and people may enjoy it. And also, like, I know like people like going out to eat, but now they have to take takeout or delivery. And some people may find it super comfortable doing that. So maybe like on the weekend or like on Friday, instead of going out to have a dinner with family, they may have a takeout and just enjoy at home. So I think at some level, some people, like including me, realizing like working at home isn't that bad and actually like it a little bit. So I think people may be reluctant to going back that much, and that's from a personal perspective. I think for the long term, like we're talking about 20 years, I think the norm will be people will forget. Like they don't really like. When SARS happened in Beijing in 2003, that was 17 years ago, and I was in Beijing. It was like a personal experience. So I had experienced this kind of pandemic twice in my lifetime. And like, I think back in 2003, like it was kind of on top of the head for everybody. And even like 2004 and 5, like people are still talking about that. But before the COVID-19 happened, I wouldn't think like anybody who experienced that in Beijing would mention it again. It was because if you have been personally affected, like your family members die, you might still remember it. But for people like me who are just hearing it from the news and not really like, I may hear it from like some neighbor died, but I didn't really get affected personally or in my family. It was memory in the past. It didn't have a long, like maybe there's some policy changes that I just got adapted to over this much long time, but on a personal level, I wasn't like, oh, because we have the pandemic back then, so I should do certain things.
Right.
Like 17 years after that, I think people tend to forget, and we don't. Yeah, like nobody really talk about that in Beijing, and even people from Beijing will talk to them. Like, I don't think that subject would ever come up in a conversation. Not that we try to avoid it, but it just, it passed. It wasn't, it will end, and it will kind of end. I kind of disappear in people's memory too. Like, even now when I look back, I was like, it was pretty bad back then. But because I was in elementary school and I was out of school, I was kind of enjoying it. Like I didn't fully grasp how dangerous it is, but I was like, oh, I don't need to go to school. It was a good time. And I don't quite remember the details, like what exactly. We had to wear a mask, I remember that. But I don't remember a whole bunch of things that happened during that time that put everybody's life so hard. And I think like in the really long term, people do forget.
Yeah.
Yeah, it won't, like right now people feel like this is a once in a lifetime thing, and it's gonna be so big, and everybody experience will feel like, oh, this is the thing that will change my life forever. But I think if you really have been like past that point for a super long time, like 10 or 20 years, it will just be an experience that you had, not that much different from any other experience in your life.
I think that's fair. I certainly won't be surprised if in 5 years I'll kind of forget that this all happened, as I'll probably be working in an office again and probably be doing all the day-to-day things as normal. Um, it definitely seems like monumental in the moment, and I personally am sure it'll have some lasting impact, but the connection of why or where it kind of reverberates in life will be lost on me. Oh,
Mhm.
right. Yeah, I forgot. We had that thing a few years ago, and then that's why things are the way they are now. Sure, okay. Um, yeah, it's interesting. I'm definitely. It's funny because I feel like I've asked a lot of people this question of like, what do you think things will look like once it's all said and done? Um, and you get a whole range of answers. Some cynical people thinking nothing will change whatsoever. Some people who are just genuinely curious, uncertain, hopeful, maybe things will be really, really different. Um, so it's interesting. We got a nice range of people here. The next question I wanted to ask is a bit more specific. It's similar to what I had just asked, but it's specific to you. When you hear, let's say there's word here is next week, Pennsylvania will be opening up a few things, or Pittsburgh. I kind of lost track. But let's say next week, for the all intents and purposes of this conversation, we're given the okay. It's totally fine. Like there is no risk whatsoever. We're at a point where it's okay to go outside. You don't even have to really worry about a mask. Like let's say in this hypothetical, it's okay. We've hit the point where it's safe to be engaging with people, things like that. What specifically are you going to do? And I don't mean like, are you still going to walk out in a mask? I mean, are you just going to go out and life goes back to normal? Is there something now that you really desire to see happen in your life or in the life of others? Is there something that you're like, once this stay-at-home order is done, I'm going to go and affect this change outside? Is there anything like that that you've even maybe passingly thought about?
I want to go back to school and do research. I'll do experiments specifically, because right now, before this all happened, my group and we are experimentalists. So like 90% of our works are done with experiment. But now, because this happened, we have to stay at home, and school is absolutely shut down.
Mhm.
We are like the experimental group are taking a huge hit compared to the computational groups. And I think personally, I feel affected in a way that because I can't make much progress, but I'm doing experiment, all I can do is reading papers, write papers, and that's pretty much it. I start to be generally concerned about whether or not I can graduate on time. And because the nature of my work was doing experiments, so I feel like right now I'm not really conducting proper research on the subject that I'm doing right now. So if we are open, the first and foremost thing that I want to do would be going back to school and do experiment to contribute to the research.
Gotcha. Sounds good. Just right
Yeah.
back into it. Yeah.
Yeah, because right now I feel like I'm not that as productive as I would be if I can go to school. And it's not just the part that I can do my work in the way that's supposed to be done. It's also like when you're surrounded by the community, like the colleagues in the office, you can talk to them and share ideas. So that's the progress I feel like will roll much faster because there's a lot of collaborations that not like I'm not going out purposely to try to collaborate with everybody in the group, but because we all just sit in the office and people do experiment together, it's just a natural thing for people to collaborate and chat and exchange ideas. So I think having that environment will be really helpful for me to do my research. And I only have 1 year left really to finish my thesis and do the defense. I start to feel a little bit pressure because I can't really get any result from my research right now.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Court.
I think you said it first.
You first.
All right. Well, this is honestly the first time I thought about this. It's kind of like it's kind of like because COVID happened, what change am I gonna make? Or like basically what did I learn from it happening? Sort of. It's not, at least that's the way I'm thinking about the question. And I can think about things that I was like, oh, I think it'd be cool to do this, like that involved people. Like ideas that I had before COVID happened, where like after everything got shut down, like I can't do those things anymore. But I mean, I feel like I had ample time and ample opportunity before COVID happened. So yeah, I think I guess the change that I would need to make is if I have an idea that involves people, don't procrastinate, like, or jump on those ideas, because who knows when I'll get the opportunity. Yeah.
Matt?
I've had two different thoughts. One of them being I want to take the wife on a nice date, and then it's not like that wasn't possible before. We did try going out on a date at a park, but then the weather turned on us and it ended up being way too cold to actually go and do anything. So it would have been necessary to be inside somewhere. So yeah, I think in part being out of the house, being able to go out and do something nice would be great. But that's also on a very, very small level. But the thing that I've been thinking about that's a little bit bigger that can't really be done right now quite as effectively is outreach. And so that's I've been thinking of one or two specific ways to go out and do it that I'm definitely looking forward to going and doing. One of those definitely includes talking to people that I was already interacting with before the shutdown, and I still have been, but just really missing those face-to-face interactions. So yeah, that's something that I really value quite a bit, and it's something that I'm looking forward to just being able to do on a consistent basis again, is see someone face to face in the same room, and being able to have sort of the laxness and the sort of that casual atmosphere of being able to relax, eat something with someone, or have something to drink face to face, and just be able to mellow out and enjoy that person's physical company. Because while this is good, I really do appreciate that face-to-face level.
Yeah.
I have something to add. Sorry, I forgot. It's something small that I forgot to mention. I think the first thing, in terms of like a specific thing that I would do, is I might want to fly to Chicago or LA and to get married. So I was scheduled to register to get married in the beginning of April. That me and my fiance, we agreed that's the time that we're gonna go. And then at the end of March, we're checking like in Pittsburgh, LA, that's where he is, and in Chicago, all of the courts shut down and they remain closed, and clerk's office are closed. So I can't really get married now. And because we're in different cities and he's still working, so if we really travel, I need to be quarantined for like 2 weeks, which is not ideal. So if we are open, not just Pittsburgh, but for him in California as well, and in Chicago, because that's where we want to get married. And I think that's the absolute first thing that I would do.
Yeah. Definitely relate on like the small level ideas of like, I want to go, like, my parents' anniversary is the 20th of May. My sister's birthday is the 16th. You know, I try to make an effort every year to like at least visit or do something. And then because of all this, I'm like, you know, I really do just want to go see them. I really want to go out there and just spend the weekend or the week or whatever with them. And on top of that, like just engage on that level and possibly even visit other family and just kind of go from there. But yeah, and really, you know, hopefully this kind of lifts. Like it's kind of weird. We're kind of reaching that point where maybe I can do something, but it doesn't seem super likely that I'll be able to do it that week or that weekend or whatever. But to just go ultimately and visit them and say, hey, listen, you know, haven't been able to visit you even if I wanted to these past few months. Now I really want to visit you guys and just spend some time, since that was definitely off the table. And we were all kind of siloed off. And if anything had happened related to COVID-19 or otherwise, like it would have been difficult to kind of work around. So yeah, go visit them. And then on a bigger level, I really just want to work towards wanting to collaborate with people like in the community, go out and work together. If I've learned anything, it's that collaborating through all of this is difficult. It's just not easy. It's not intuitive. And I don't mean to say like socializing is still a thing. Yeah, I would much rather prefer to have this conversation with all of you literally right in front of me. But this is still sufficient. This is still capable. Like this still accomplishes that goal. But if we wanted to work together on doing something, on affecting a plan, like I don't know about you guys, but this takes me right out of it. I don't feel anywhere near as effective. I don't feel capable of like being in a conversation and engaging and being able to discuss and sort out these things. I see it in work. I see it outside of work. And I really want to, once this is all said and done, I'm sure plenty of people will be having that same desire of like, well, I've been cooped up in this house for so long. Now I want to do community service projects. Now I want to go out there and assist in that way too. I want to be engaged and, you know, obviously I'll be having conversations with people, but to work with a group and to actually accomplish a goal, is something I really want to like be a part of once this is all said and done.
I think for me, the first thing I probably just go to the Blackstreet girls' house because I miss all the girls so much, and I also want to visit Laura and Brandy's house. And then I think the change that I'm going to make is to live with the other sisters. So my apartment, the lease for the current apartment is going to be end, and also Ruby and Rachel is planning to move in out of that house. So we're kind of schedule what's our household situation for the next year, and we are planning to live together. And then I'm going to reschedule and replan my family visit because my family previously planned to visit in April, but because of this COVID-19, all the flights has been canceled. So I have to reschedule all the visit stuff.
Very cool. Well, it's cool. It's interesting. We all have very different ideas on what will happen day one of everything being done, and you know, arguably like day 1500 or anything like that. So I want to look at a passage that I really hope it's kind of weird. I spent a lot of time trying to find what I was looking for, and I found something else instead, which go figure, isn't that just the way God works? Um, but this passage really captured the particular heart that I think is so incredibly valuable for everyone in this Zoom meeting or otherwise to really have. So I'm going to be reading from Nehemiah. I'm going to be starting in chapter 2. And, obviously Nehemiah's at a point where Jerusalem has been ruined. It's in tatters. It's just taken a serious hit. And it weighs heavily on Nehemiah's heart. And he hears about it. He wants to do something about it. And I don't think that's too dissimilar to how we're feeling right now. Granted, we don't have, the world isn't literally in ruins. But there has been a hit that's been dealt in the grand scheme of things. And I know personally, I've been asking myself that question that I asked all of you a lot lately. What do I want to do when this is all said and done? It's that like itching of like you're a dog in a cage, you're just barking, you're trying to get out, and you're focused on that very first thing you're going to do the moment you're let out. And I'd be very sad if the quote unquote first thing I did was basically just turn around and go right back into the cage. What is it that I'm like really pining to do after all this? So anyway, kind of that thought. But in Nehemiah 2, starting in verse 1, it reads, "In the month of Nisan, in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, when wine was brought for him, I took the wine and gave it to the king. I had not been sad in his presence before, so the king asked me, 'Why does your face look so sad when you are not ill? This can be nothing but sadness of heart.' I was very much afraid, but I said to the king, 'May the king live forever. Why should my face not look sad when the city where my ancestors are buried lies in ruins and its gates have been destroyed by fire?' The king said to me, 'What is it you want?' Then I prayed to the God of heaven, and I answered the king, 'If it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favor in his sight, let him send me to the city in Judah where my ancestors are buried, so that I can rebuild it.' Then the king, with the queen sitting beside him, asked me, 'How long will your journey take, and when will you get back?' It pleased the king to send me, so I set a time. I also said to him, 'If it pleases the king, may I have letters to the governors of Trans-Euphrates, so that they will provide me safe conduct until I arrive in Judah? And may I have a letter to Asaph, keeper of the royal park, so he will give me timber to make beams for the gates of the citadel by the temple, and for the city wall, and for the residence I will occupy.' And because the gracious hand of my God was on me, the king granted my requests. So I went to the governors of Trans-Euphrates and gave them the king's letters. The king had also sent army officers and cavalry with me." And that's where I'll end off there. I find it interesting. It's really great that obviously this is a position where Nehemiah has found favor from the king. And the king asks him what's going on. He sees it. He sees that something is off. And he explains, he lays out the situation. Jerusalem is in ruins, gates been destroyed. This is heavy on my heart. And the king asks, "What is it you want?" And I think subconsciously, that's kind of the prompt we're all kind of getting right now. What is it that you want? What do you want to see different? The world is kind of in a weird place. There's a virus that causes all sorts of problems. We have politics, we have finances, we have work, we have issues, we have just weird social dynamics, all sorts of things going on right now. And it weighs, maybe not as heavily as it did for Nehemiah, or maybe not as heavily as it does for people we know or anything like that, but it weighs. It's grating, it's there. It's a present thing that is all affecting us. And that question of what is it that you want kind of just pops into your head. Nehemiah then prays, and he answered the king. And to be honest, I don't know if I've done that. I don't know if I've legitimately just had the question asked, then prayed, and then answered. I've definitely given it some thought. I've definitely tried to route it out. But Nehemiah prayed. And not only is that really great, if it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favor in his sight, let him send me to the city in Judah where my ancestors are buried so that I can rebuild it. What a request. What an ask. Hey, if it's all okay with you, I'd like to take some time off from work, and I'm just going to go to the city of my ancestors, of which you may or may not really care about, and I'm going to rebuild it. How long will your journey take? Sure. How much time? How much time do you want off? That's crazy. That's pretty relaxed paid time off. But not only that, but he asks for more. He asks for more assistance. Can I have letters saying that I can have safe travel, that I can have assistance, that I can have resources to aim for this task? And it says, because the gracious hand of my God was on me, the king granted my requests. And so we see that from verses 4 to 8, all of this is because he found favor, he found all this stuff, but it's because God was present in that request. God was on his heart, and Nehemiah had a desire to go see that change. And he was bold enough to ask for those requests. And it was granted, not because the king was great, but because God is great. And so I think about that with regards to our current situation. And I think, all right, well, I really want to pray on this. I really want to think on this. But what do I want? What do I really want to see have happen? And I like that there was kind of this small, big approach. And I wonder what the big approach I can accomplish really is. What really do I want to see change? I really want to see change in the community. Not some esoteric like, oh, wouldn't the community be better if it improved? But I really want the community to be strengthened because we just had this happen. There are going to be a lot of needs met, and I don't know at this point what the next big thing is going to be. And that's always been a looming fear, and it actually happened here. Like, thank God it's not the most like it's not the bubonic plague, right? But it did bring the world to a halt. And it has had an impact. And I want to go and make sure that should something like that happen again, people are able and willing to go and help each other as best as they can. Whether it is a virus, whether it is financial issues, whatever it may be. And so I look at Nehemiah's heart here, and I see someone who his heart was saddened by the state of affairs, wanted to see a change, was unafraid to make those requests, and was unafraid to really double down on it. It's not enough that I simply want to see this change. I want you to provide me the resources to make this change a reality. And so when we were going over all the things that we want to see changed, the question I have for you now is, what is it specifically that you want to see that change really occur? I know for me, for collaboration, I really need to have the personal will and drive and a group of people who are all in it at the exact same time. A group of people, whether they're a part of the church or otherwise, that there's just a small group that says, you know what, we are going to work towards making this a reality. We're going to work together, and we're going to work to assist others, and we're going to work to make this community, however you want to define community in this context, whether it's a neighborhood or, you know, a borough or whatever, we're going to work to make this a real community that's connected and can help each other.
It's really cool that you shared the scripture. As you were sharing, it was getting me to think and remember just different times that God had answered my prayers. There was this one time, it was when I was working a different job, and this was many years ago. This is 8 or 9 years ago. Basically, what I wanted to do for a couple of different reasons. I wanted to go overseas, both for some of my own personal reasons, and also to do some service there for a couple of weeks. So basically, it was going to be personal time the first 2 and the last 2 weeks of my time, and then the middle 2 weeks was going to be service. But that's 6 whole weeks taking off from my job. And so I remember getting excited and thinking about all the words that I wanted to use and everything I wanted to say. I had a 10 or 12 slide presentation to show my boss what I was going to do, who I was going to be with, in what capacity I was going to be serving, how I was going to be using my day job there, and that I would be documenting everything and all of that. And I had everything ready. I had her set aside. She was in a good mood. And I'm thinking, okay, here we go. I'm going to do everything I can to make the presentation. And so I started off by saying, now what I'm looking to do is a little bit of a big ask. And then I said, I need 6 weeks off to go to such and such. And that's just the way I started off to see what her response would be. And instead of going into my whole spiel and the entire presentation that I had set up, she just immediately, without asking any other questions, just, okay, you can go. I have a presentation that I can show you. It's like she's already said yes, but I wanted to, for some reason, I still wanted to do that. But it was just a moment in which God knew the desires of my heart, and I was given permission to go, and my job was maintained, and it was an incredible moment. My jaw had literally dropped open. So yeah, it was just completely and totally provided for.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I want and I wish and I pray that that moment can be replicated in our lives once that, like, I mean, at any point whatsoever in the future, always. Like, I would just want that for any time we ever make a request. But it would be great if that's what happens once this is all said and done. That we can make a request and God really just comes in and says, yeah, I'm happy you're actually doing this. This is great. Yeah, absolutely. I'll give you everything.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to put a word to what I need. I don't know, you know, like, I guess I need to figure out what it is that I guess slows me down from acting on specific ideas, whether that could be fear or insecurity or whatever it is. I guess figure it out and eliminate those things. That's I guess that's what I need to do. Yeah.
That's fair. Yeah.
I think for me, is I need to be more cherish the friendship and the relationship with my family, because previously, my family and I we don't have a really good relationship for communication. But after this time, I think we were both very cherished that we still alive, and we will be very grateful that we could see each other again.
Yeah, for me, I think it's getting connected to old friends So when this happened, because I'm in the state and my friends from both China and around the world, and they send me messages asking me how am I doing, and some of my friends are like, we haven't talked to each other for a really long time, like 4 or 5 years. And at some point in my life, I was like, oh, I remember this person, but we haven't talked for so long, and I may or may not have their contact message, like contact information, but I wasn't even bothered to like check. I was just like, nah, it's too long. Maybe they forget about me. Maybe they're busy with life, and all kind of excuses that prevent me from reaching out to them. And this time, because like people thought like America is facing, like people here is facing such a hardship, so they actually reach out to me, like my families and friends. And I was surprised to see that when we start this conversation, even though we haven't talked to each other for a really long time, we're actually able to continue this conversation for a really long time. Like we just been talking, like we're friends who know each other so well. Like we were friends before, but my feeling was just like, oh, we probably don't know each other that well anymore because we haven't talked to each other for that long. But when we actually get connected again, it just occurs to me like those friends are still really good friends, even though we haven't talked to each other for a very long time. So from that, I was just surprised at how the bond that I built in the past is something really strong instead of like as weak as I thought it would be. And continue on in the future, I just think even though sometimes I feel like, oh, maybe I haven't talked to those friends for too long. If I was thinking about them because of certain things, I should reach out to them. I shouldn't be afraid because there's maybe awkwardness. We didn't talk for very long. But still reach out to them and trying to reconnect.
Yeah.
And I think I got that advice both from my colleagues before at work and from my fiance, and he was doing really good in that. Like he has a friend who hasn't called him for like 5-6 years, and he was like deciding to call because Chicago is particularly bad, and he has a lot of friends in Chicago, so he started calling them, and he was telling them he had long conversation with this high school classmates, like multiple of them. I was like, oh really, maybe I should try to do something similar. And I started to do something, somebody reached out to me, and I also reached out to like somebody else, and I was just very astonished by how strong that connection feel, like after we haven't been talking for so long. Yeah. So I think what I want to change is in the future, if I was thinking about somebody, I should reach out to them without feeling like just I don't want to call it feeling shy, but it's just like reluctant because of all kind of not important reasons.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting and kind of to just bring everything to a close. This is an interesting time. Obviously, we all know this. And sometimes I talk to people, some of the people I've spoken to, and all that they're focused on is how to just get through this. That's all that's on their mind. And that's a fair thing to kind of have on your mind for a bit. How am I going to endure through this? Especially if you're less fortunate and you lose a job or you lose loved ones or you lose opportunities. Like those are valid things to try and work through. But I think it's also valuable to kind of look ahead and say, well, I don't know if things are necessarily going to be the same once this is all said and done. And I don't know if they should even be the same once this is all said and done. And we see Nehemiah just ultimately take that initiative of asking or answering to the question, what is it that you want? And I think it's super valuable for us to ask this question for what we want in a post-COVID-19 world, as dramatic as that sounds. But once this is done, once we have greater flexibility, greater ability, what are the things that we're going to God with and praying about and asking truly, well, what is it that we really want to see now? I mean, is it just going to be the same things I was asking for earlier before all this began? That, this thing would work out, or I would have this job, or this much finances, or these goals? Or did this entire experience really reveal to me that, wow, Jerusalem was really important to my heart? Wow, this all holds a very significant meaning to me. And I really want to see what I can do going forward. So I hope that that's encouraging. I hope that gives you something to think about, something to contemplate, and whether it be God willing or what have you, that we have a little or a lot of time to think on that question. I pray that it's not a question that we lose sight of, and that we don't just let it all pass us by and do nothing on it. That at the very least, even if things don't outwardly feel like they're going to change, inwardly we have a greater appreciation for how important they really were to us. And we have a greater drive to fight for them and to see them just be a greater part of our lives and our identity. So yeah, I hope we keep asking ourselves this question, and that we can just go off once this is all said and done and really affect and rebuild and bring great change to one person or a community or the world. That there's no limit, and that so long as we really just go to God and really pray on it and really seek his wisdom, but have his desires, we can do really awesome things. Amen?
Amen.
Awesome. I don't know if anyone had any parting thoughts or what have you, but that's all I got.
Yeah, I have another thing that I realized just by listening to your talking this. I was thinking a lot of times when this happened and people really want to get back to the normal life, and there's a lot of fear because they, like you said, somebody may be on the unfortunate side, they lost their job, they lost family members, so they have a great fear that they will impact their life even more, so they want to go back to where it was. But the thing, like I remember this in the press conference, Dr. Fauci said there will be new norm. It will not be exactly as what it was before, and I strongly believe that it will be something new. And a lot of people, I feel like a lot of people right now, they're so afraid of what will going to be in the future, the new norm. And I think there's a need to break out of that fear, that being afraid what is new, the new normal life, and just embrace whatever is going to come, and having that kind of peace of mind. Like when Jeremiah, he was asked, like his past was having a bad impact, like his ancestors was greatly affected. But when new time comes, I feel like because God was with him, he break the fear, that he talked to the king, this is what I want to do in the future, and he embraced that opportunity.
Yeah.
So I think that's a saying. Like I was trying to say, I was also trying to talk to the people around me who I feel like they're afraid what's going to come. I was just like, we may not know what's going to come, but whatever going to come, I assure you that we will be able to adapt to that new norm. And because God is with us, and I just have that peace of mind that we will be able to transit to whatever is coming and embrace it when it comes. It's something important.
Absolutely. I agree. Cool. Well, I think if that's all, that's it for us then. Join us next. I'm terrible at closing these things.
Thanks for watching. We're going to stop.
Bye.
Okay.